Welcome back to the Organized Coach podcast. Today, I have a fantastic guest joining me for the second time, Mark Butler. Mark is the founder of Let's Do the Books, a bookkeeping service that helps coaches and online business owners simplify their finances so they can focus on growing their businesses. And it's what I use, it's what I love. We're going to talk about it inside this episode. Mark isn't just a bookkeeper, he's also an experienced CFO and financial coach who has worked with some of the biggest names in the coaching industry. He understands the unique financial challenges coaches face and has a passion for helping business owners feel confident and in control of their money. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation with Mark, where we're going to be talking about his bookkeeping services, but also money management and the financial side of running a coaching business. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by your business finances and wondered how to make better financial decisions, how to keep track and organize your finances, then this episode is for you. Are you ready to work less, feel more organized and productive, streamline repetitive tasks, and implement systems that allow your coaching business to run smoothly even without you? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Organized Coach podcast, your go-to source for practical tips and solutions. I'm your host, Tracy Hoth, professional organizer, certified life coach, simplifying expert, and most of all, down-to-earth fellow coach just like you. No matter if you think you're missing the organizing gene, have ADHD, or just love anything organizing, I'm here to help you become an organized coach with a business that works for you. Pull up a seat and let's get started. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here again.
Yeah, your second time here. I specifically wanted you to come because I use your bookkeeping service and I love it and I tell everyone about it. And so I wanted to talk specifically about that to begin with. But let's start. I just want, if someone's listening and they're like, what even is a bookkeeping service? To tell us about that. So one of the things that I think about is what's the difference between bookkeeping and an accountant and keeping track of your money? I mean, just explain what you do and how that is useful or helpful and the differences.
Yeah. I'll start with the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant. And I guess it's kind of a semantic difference. When people say accountant, they usually mean the person who prepares their taxes. Accountants do all kinds of things in this world that are not tax preparation, but when most of us say accountant or CPA, we mean tax preparer. And so an accountant in the way that we tend to use the word is a person who fills out the forms to file your taxes, calculates your taxes, tells you if you're getting a refund, if you're not getting a refund, if you owe money. That's what your accountant typically does. The bookkeeper prepares the reports that the accountant uses to file the taxes. So you do have accounting firms or tax preparation firms who also do bookkeeping.
Okay.
But and I suppose you do have bookkeepers who file taxes. So there's probably, it's a little bit interchangeable, but mostly if a person describes themselves as a bookkeeper, they're not filing taxes. If a person describes himself as an accountant or a tax professional, they're mostly preparing tax returns.
Okay, that makes sense when you said if they say they're a bookkeeper, that's the clarification. They're not doing your taxes.
Probably not.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I guess I was my own bookkeeper for a long time because
exactly.
Yeah.
Most people, if you've ever heard in the business world, if you say, our people think of their biggest competitor being the other products and services that provide the thing that they do. And it's often said that, no, your biggest competition is nothing, meaning most people who don't use my bookkeeping service, it's not because they use a different one. It's because they don't do bookkeeping or they, quote, do it themselves. And that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean scrambling at tax time to the accountant will ask me if I'm doing my own bookkeeping, the accountant asks me questions They ask for numbers. I'm supposed to go get those numbers. I give them the numbers. They plug them into the tax returns.
Hmm.
So doing bookkeeping yourself can look like anything from having a spreadsheet with a bunch of tabs on it, which is the most common application that I see. Drives me a tiny bit crazy. Uh, where people sometimes they remember to enter their transaction, sometimes they don't. They end up with this spreadsheet. It's kind of half complete. And then they kind of slide it across the desk to their tax professional, and their tax professional's like, all right, I'll do what I can. Or they use QuickBooks. They get over the learning curve with QuickBooks and they keep track of it in there. Or at tax time, they just scramble and kind of like gather up a bunch of stuff and squint
Yeah. Hope it's all
and
there and hope
and
they
hope
don't
it's all
get
there
audited.
and stress out about it and lose a little sleep and swear they're never going to do it this way again. And that's what doing your own bookkeeping, that's the kind of range of things that doing your own bookkeeping can look like. So I would actually be curious. I mean, I think I have my own version of what the benefit of hiring a bookkeeper is, but what's different for you having hired a bookkeeper versus when you were
Yeah,
not working with a bookkeeper?
I was thinking about this morning before our interview, and I thought so. I've been a professional organizer since 2008. So in all those years, I kept track of my own books, and that meant getting QuickBooks and avoiding it as much as I could. And then when I did do it, I hated it and I forgot everything that I needed to know about it. But I would sit there and get everything put in. And then I made it so complicated because I sold packages of organizing. And then I would
Oh,
have to keep track of how many hours we actually worked. And then it would,
you
I
you
just,
did?
and
Oh,
I
okay.
just made it so complicated.
We
And
really do. When you give a person a task like bookkeeping,
yeah,
they will show you their personality in 2 minutes. And
yes,
you are a professional organizer, and that is exactly how a professional book organizer would start to do her own bookkeeping.
yes,
You jumped into a level of accounting. You're doing that's accounting work that is more complex, more harder than not any accounting work I've ever done, but 99% of the accounting work I've done.
yeah.
Where you're like, okay, well, I sold it on this date, but then I delivered the services on these dates. And so how much of the revenue am I going to recognize for this period? That
Yes. And
is
I would go
so
back to
funny.
my paper files because back then, I mean, I don't think we had digital stuff, but I would go back to my paper thing and I'd be figuring it out on the paper and it was such a pain. So I would put it off. And then at the end of the year or every 6 to 9 months, I would sit there and do it and then get the report, I guess, and give it to my whoever was doing my taxes.
Yeah.
And I hated it.
Yeah.
So then I don't remember. I should have looked up what year we started. I hired you, but I
Probably
had,
2021.
yeah. So, I mean, it's been an amazing 4 years of complete freedom because then I started a membership in 2020. I think I hired you like in December of 2020 or something. So you
Mm,
got the entire year
yeah.
all put together for that year. And so I had little charges all over the place. And for me to think about entering all those in, and I'm not like, I don't know how to code stuff. I don't know how to do any of that. I would have had to enter it in. I guess I could have hooked up. I think I did hook up my bank account, but all of that sounded awful. And so you were like, oh, yeah. This will be easy. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to do my entire year of bookkeeping. And then I just take your printout and I give it to my accountant, and it's so amazing. It's worth every penny. But I do remember the one of the great things about your service and the reason I, took the step to join was because of your sliding scale.
Yeah.
Knowing that, okay, I mean, I'm at the beginning stages of my business back then, and I didn't want to pay a lot of money, so I loved your sliding scale. So tell us more about, exactly what your service is and your scale and stuff like that.
You just described the service very well. When you join the service, if you need me to, I will do up to a year of bookkeeping as part of the
Oh,
onboarding
wow.
process.
Okay.
Um, and I don't charge a fee for that right now. At different points, I have charged a fee for it, then I stopped it. But what I find is that it's a great way to invest in the relationship at the beginning. And
Yeah.
so, and I've built, since I've been doing this for 11 years, I've built tools that make it pretty quick and easy to do a year of bookkeeping if I need to. So that's the start. And then from there, once a month, as you know, we import the transactions into the software. We categorize all the transactions. We flag those we're not sure about. You review the ones we're not sure about. It takes you, I think, probably just a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we update the reports, and you always have the reports at your fingertips. And that's what bookkeeping looks like. And then, of course, at tax time, like you said, you just print out the report. There's different accountants, tax pros like the data different formats sometimes. So some of my clients print it out. Some of my clients give them direct access to the reports. But the bottom line is you give it to the tax pro. The tax pro reaches out to me if there are any corrections or adjustments that need to be made. And that's it. That's all you have to do. As we talk about that, I think one of the biggest benefits, because I'm just thinking about, I've been onboarding a few clients lately. I think one of the biggest benefits to hiring a bookkeeper is that the bookkeeper has much more clarity about what matters and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So when a person is attempting to do her own bookkeeping and she's scouring her transactions, there's this enormous cognitive load of, does this count? Is it a business expense? If it is a business expense, what's the right category? What am I supposed to call it?
Mm-hmm.
And then they can really bog down there. I think it's incredibly mentally and emotionally expensive. Whereas I can look at a list of transactions, and it's not that everyone in the world would agree with me, because you'd be amazed how much variance there is in accountants and bookkeepers' opinions of categories, for example. But mine have 11 years of experience behind them at least. So I can say, yep, here's how I categorize it. Yep, we're done. You don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's a big advantage. It is fascinating to me, depending on the personality of the person that I'm bringing into the service. If I have a very conscientious, maybe perfectionistic, meticulous person, it's very interesting for them to to watch them be so relieved that I'm doing it, but then wanting to kind of like get into the weeds with me a little bit. And I have to gently say, oh no, I don't need your opinion of the category. I need to know what the transaction was. I'll take it from there. But
Yeah.
it's amazing how some clients, they're like, well, no, it needs to be called this. And I said, oh, okay, interesting. All right. But
Yeah.
you just see all different kinds of personalities. But the main thing is I observe people have a huge relief when they just don't have to think about this anymore.
Yes. And I even notice when I am on calls with my Organized Coach Academy members, they'll ask me, or a one-on-one client will ask me, "Well, what do you do for bookkeeping? Or how do you organize your bookkeeping?" And I'm like, "Or your numbers, your finances." And I just think, I don't do anything. Let me try to think about it. I have your spreadsheet that is unbelievable on my bookmarks bar. So if I want to look at anything related to money, I just click one button and there it is. I can look at my 12-month rolling um, income revenue,
Yep.
and then I can look at my profit and loss statement. I can just look at everything on there. I don't do a single thing to organize my numbers or my finances.
I'm actually curious though, Tracy, if that was hard. It would be my perception. I'm actually onboarding a professional organizer right now, another one. I've wondered about professional organizers in particular. Did you find it hard to let go?
No, not
You
at
didn't.
all.
Interesting.
No.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should have, but I've wondered if a person who has the wiring to be a professional organizer,
Hmm.
I've wondered if that's a person who it's like, well, I don't want to do the bookkeeping, but I actually kind of want to do the bookkeeping. I want to organize things. I want to create the system. I want to shuffle the papers, but
No.
I mean,
I
that's not
hated it.
you.
I literally, I think it's the part where nobody really taught me what to do. I just learned on my own. So I kind of knew what I should do, or I don't, back then we didn't even have videos, I don't think. So I kind of knew, I read some stuff, but then I never felt confident about what I was doing. So I procrastinated and then I had to do it. So I just had to try to figure it out. So to not spend any time doing that, and it was just so much freedom. I just smile. Like when I pay your full price, I'm like, yes, every penny was worth it. So, yeah.
Oh, you asked about my sliding scale. I didn't
Yeah.
answer.
Oh, yeah. It's
So
all about that.
I don't, honestly, I do not remember how I had this idea. I do remember being nervous about it and thinking it was maybe a terrible idea. Because the way I price my services is that I essentially charge the same as PayPal or Stripe, where it's 3%. But the difference between me and PayPal and Stripe is that my fee caps.
Hmm.
So my base fee is $30 a month. So no one pays less than 30. And my max fee is 200. And in between those numbers, it's just 3% of the previous month's revenue. So in a month where a person makes whatever it is, $2,000, that's a $60 bookkeeping fee. In a month where they make $10,000, that's a $200 bookkeeping fee because they maxed out the sliding scale,
Hmm.
and then everything in between. So I do think I've admitted this to myself even in the last 6 months. I think that my service is a luxury, whereas I might have before that wanted to call it a utility because we might say I've heard some of my clients and fellow coaches say, well, you have to have a bookkeeper, but you don't have to have a bookkeeper. And
Right.
so I'm actually more comfortable now saying my service is a luxury, but it's a luxury whose price is kind of aligned with your what's going on with you and your business. So if you
I
have a low
don't,
month, I have a
yeah.
low I have a lower fee. If you have your best month ever, I have a higher fee, but it's still capped at a certain
Yeah.
level.
No, I think that whole thing is genius. And I don't even see it as a luxury. I mean,
Hmm.
if you're not making enough money, or if you're making enough, whatever you make, and you're having to pay minimum $30, I mean, imagine the time of doing that and just the peace and assurance that you just get something to hand to your accountant.
Yeah.
All of my bank is hooked up, my Stripe, my Kajabi, my PayPal, it's all hooked in. So you have everything that comes in there. It's just like amazing.
I do get confused sometimes because sometimes people will leave the service. People churn out of every service and they'll say, I'm going to go, it's time for me to do my own bookkeeping and to do it in QuickBooks. And I'll say, okay. And maybe their average fee with me, if I look at their average, maybe it's $50 or $60 a month. Well, QuickBooks is 40 or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really do get confused at that point where I think they must just really want to do their own bookkeeping and no problem. But dollar for dollar, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But
Right.
you know,
And okay, so then let's start. So your service is bookkeeping and you hook everything up and then you give them a spreadsheet and you send the end of the month evaluation if there's anything that needs to be clarified.
yeah.
And that literally takes me 5 minutes. So I spend 5 minutes every month on my books and I can pull up my numbers anytime I want and know my numbers. So I'm just thinking about the people that are out there who are maybe doing their own books or they're just starting. Like, what does a coach who's just starting and feels completely unorganized with their business finances, what do you think their first step should be if they were to do it on their own? And then we can even talk about like what makes it the right time to join your or to hire you.
I know it's self-serving, but I really believe the right time to join is now. And what I mean by that is as soon as you're spending money in your business, even before you're earning money in your business, as soon as you're spending money in your business, your tax returns are now different. And there are new fields to fill out on that return and there's just new stuff there as soon as you're spending money in a business. So that would be the time to either start tracking it yourself or to hire somebody like me to start tracking it with you. Because of my sliding scale, I honestly get confused about when people are like, no, I'll just do it myself. I'm like, $30? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. But actually like number one is run your business out of a dedicated checking account.
Okay.
It is step one. Just get a checking account and run the business out of that. And if your business is so new that it's not generating money yet, so your personal life is funding your business, still get a dedicated business checking account. And before you spend on a business thing, put the money into the business checking account and spend from there.
Yeah. So keep everything separate.
Keep everything separate for this project. And then I mean, if you do hire a bookkeeper, I know if you hire me, I will help you keep track of how much money have you personally invested in the business versus how much money has the business generated versus how much has it spent. That's all part of the bookkeeping process. But get a dedicated business checking account. And some people might say, well, actually, I'm funding my business not even out of my personal cash. I'm funding it with credit. I'm borrowing to start my business. Okay. Dedicated credit card for those expenses. And I really feel for people. I've done this, so I don't criticize anybody who's done it. This was me in 2007, probably. They have business transactions spread across 9 accounts. That's why it's a nightmare in the month of March and April, because they have all these accounts with transactions spread across all of them. Just do yourself a favor, one checking account, one credit card. That's how you want to do it. And then forever after, you'll never have to wonder where the transactions are. It'll all be right in one place. And I promise you will thank yourself for having done that.
Yeah. It's bringing up all the times when I accidentally didn't have my work card and had to use my personal, or accidentally didn't have my, it was in my jean pocket from the day before and I had to switch it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I got to remember that. But yeah.
Which,
Okay. So,
okay,
oops.
honestly, that's another reason. I mean, this really is kind of an infomercial, isn't it? But I have a system. You'd be amazed how tied up in knots people get when they have an experience like that. I'll get emails from clients, not in a panic, that's too strong a word, but definitely worried because, oh, I accidentally used my business card for this, or, oh, I put a business transaction on my personal card. What do I need to do? Do I need to reimburse myself? And we just have this tidy little system. And I say, make one entry in this one place and you never have to think about it again. You don't have to reimburse yourself. You don't have to do a bunch of gymnastics. The IRS isn't going to get mad at you. Just make one entry in one place. We're good.
Yeah.
There's just a million of those little things where people are they're burning excess energy and they don't need to.
Yeah, I do see the email that comes through that says enter it here if you, have something that's not in your accounts. So that's so good. Okay, so they have their separate checking account, they have a credit card to go with it, they're keeping things separate. If they were going to do it themselves, is the easiest way to do that? I mean, yes, you could get QuickBooks or something like that, but even before that, is a spreadsheet like
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, this is me. I want your listeners to imagine me on my hands, like my knees, like pleading, like, please don't make a mess of the spreadsheet. I am astonished at the complexity that people can bring to 5 transactions a month.
Yes.
So if you're going to do this on a spreadsheet, here's what you're going to do. It is one tab of one spreadsheet.
Okay.
It is not one tab per month. I don't know who started telling people to do that. I would yell at them if I could find them. One tab of one spreadsheet. Here are the columns.
Okay.
You have the date of the transaction. You have what we call the payee. This is the other party in the transaction. So sometimes you're the payee when a client's paying you, and sometimes, Kajabi is the payee when you're paying your Kajabi subscription, etc. So we have date and payee. We have amount. Amount is either a positive number or a negative number, depending on whether the money left or arrived.
Okay.
And then we have, for our purposes, we're just going to say note. And the note is 3, 5, 6 words about what that transaction is. Now, it's funny, and I get it. I totally get it. When people who don't know how to do their own bookkeeping, it's so funny to me when they try to come up with technical category names. Why? Why are we doing this? Just make a note. The note is like, if it, let's say it's Kajabi. This is the platform where I host my courses.
Hmm.
Like,
We shouldn't name it like software
you
or
could,
marketing or
but
something like that.
just trust me, everyone. Your instincts about what that label is are wrong.
Mm.
Like, so if you call it software, yes, it is software. But if I'm thinking about where the numbers are actually going to end up when they go into your tax return, there are sort of more accurate or less accurate labels to give these things. So either you're going to eventually take that spreadsheet and you're going to give it to me, or you're going to take that spreadsheet and you're going to give it to a tax professional. And trust me, if you gave a tax professional a sheet with a single tab with the columns that I've described and reasonable notes, it will take them minutes to apply the appropriate category, organize it into a report that can go on to your tax returns. So they do not need you to come up with your imagined technical label for that transaction. Communications. I mean, people come up with the funniest, like, professional
Seems
something.
so
It's like,
normal, communications.
it's just say what it is. I've recently learned this great British phrase. I'm sure I'm the last one to know it, but they're like, it's what it says on the tin. Meaning, like, whatever it says on the label, that's what the thing is. So when
Uh,
you're labeling transactions, just don't try to imagine what an accountant would call it. If you have a business meal, don't call it business meals. Say lunch with client discussed X.
oh, interesting. So is there categories that are normal, like
Yeah,
accountant categories that we would not have to write a whole sentence? A
that's the
whole
thing. It's not a
sentence.
whole sentence.
Six
It's like 3 to 5
words.
words,
Yeah.
and you can reuse those 3 to 5 words. So you don't have to write a paragraph every time you're labeling a transaction,
Yes.
but you do have to actually indicate what happened when you spent the money. Because when you say, I mean, this one's in my head because I just saw it on a spreadsheet that a client gave me. When you say communications, that's not a thing in the accounting world
Mm.
or the tax world.
So you
But
would want to know, like, were you communicating with, is it for marketing purposes? Is it for client care? Is it, like
yeah,
that kind of thing?
I want to know. I mean, if it's if you buy a
Mm.
book on Amazon, I don't need you to call it professional development.
Oh, I love that term.
I'm sure you do. I need you to say a book about X.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Well, okay. On my spreadsheet that I'm envisioning, it only has 4 columns, but then I'm like, oh, but I love the drop down option that's different colors. And so I would want to have like some basic, maybe you tell me the number, 5 to 10 categories with the drop down menu so I could choose. And then if it didn't fit that, I could have a miscellaneous category. And on the side, I would have the notes, the fifth
oh,
column with the note.
it's
So I'm
so
like, that would
funny.
be so pretty. And then have all my categorized with the little note on the side.
The
No.
thing that I love what you're saying, by the way, I also love spreadsheets and I want you to have that one. The thing about how that translates to taxes is that it doesn't.
Mm.
It's just you making stuff up. And when you make that stuff up, there's this interesting psychology around, in my opinion, around you coming up with labels for those transactions that make them feel more valid and important and support your view of yourself as fancy business owner.
Mm.
I've how do I know this happens? Because I do it and I've done it. I'm not outside of this club. I'm in this club.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're actually just doing something that we want to turn over to a tax professional and have them make quick work of it in preparing our tax returns, we want to make their job easy in applying the appropriate label so
Mm-hmm.
they can do the taxes. Trust me, your tax professional does not care about the vision that you had when you purchased that book or when you joined that mastermind. That's not relevant to the preparation of your taxes. And this particular thing is a tax preparation exercise. Now,
Okay.
if you want to generate fancy spreadsheets with drop downs and color coding, I am 100% in favor. I love it. It's like one of my hobbies. It just doesn't have direct relationship to taxes or
Yeah.
to filing our taxes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've actually told you this, Tracy, but I would be happy to provide this to your community. I've made a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet has drop down menus, it has categories, it has a sheet where, and the categories are from what's called a Schedule C, which is an IRS report.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so the columns that I described, it has those columns, it has a drop down for the category, and it has an explanation of each category. So when you apply a category, you can have some confidence that you're applying the appropriate one. And I'm happy to share that with you and your community. I will say this, when I tell people to use that sheet, I encourage them to leave the category blank.
Mm. And do the
If they
note
will
thing, like you said.
do the note thing, and I say, if you'll make a brief note, your tax professional can sort that spreadsheet by notes and in minutes apply categories and then be on their way. So I'll tell people, if you have any hesitation about applying the best category, leave it blank and let your tax pro do it.
Yes. Okay.
They're going to
So,
be they're going to be so ecstatic that you gave them an organized list of transactions.
yeah.
They're not going to mind applying a few quick categories. They're going to love it.
Okay. Two questions that I just thought of right now. I can't forget. The receipts, that's one, don't tell me yet. And then the second one is, oh, I already forgot. Okay. So let's go with the receipts. When you have, do we have to keep receipts still?
The receipts thing is a mystery to me. It's been a mystery to me for the whole 11 years I've been doing bookkeeping.
Well, that's
Everyone
what
always
you
wants to
hear,
talk.
like taxes, you're going to get audited. They're going to come in and you have to have all these receipts to prove. You can't use your bank account. You can't use your credit card statement because that doesn't work. You have to have the actual receipt. That's in my
Well,
brain.
I mean, okay, I'm gonna pause on my normal response to this and try to be a little bit more thoughtful. If I'm a professional organizer and I'm always at the Container Store purchasing stuff for my clients, maybe that might be the first time in 11 years that I've said, fine, put them in a shoebox. I'm 99% sure you'll never open that shoebox again. There has not
Interesting.
been one time in 11 years, not one time in 11 years, where a receipt was necessary.
In an audit.
Uh, well, fair point. I don't think I've ever had a client get audited. But if you like, imagine a scenario where all of your transactions are online transactions. Even in the Container Store, you have like, they give you the receipt, but then the thing's just in your transaction history on your credit card statement.
Yeah.
What does the receipt offer? I mean, it shows an itemized, like, I bought these things. Yeah, maybe, but I've asked around too. I've asked other accountants, I've asked other bookkeepers, what's the deal with receipts? Everybody shrugs. I've Googled it.
And I think also we're kind of past that age, maybe. I mean, that was in our head from back then.
That's my opinion.
15 years ago, like we didn't have all the digital stuff. But now, if I needed to find a digital, like I'm thinking coaches, we're buying things on Amazon, we're paying for things online. Where else are we buying stuff? I mean, maybe we go to Target,
Yeah, maybe we go to
and
Target.
and
Yeah.
get something, but if I needed to, I probably could go there and they'd come up with something for me.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
could
know,
probably go
maybe.
to the Container Store or Target and say, I have this transaction from this date for this amount. Can you print me the receipt?
Right.
And they'd probably say,
Or, yeah, worst case, if you ever did get audited and you didn't have a receipt for Target that was $57, I mean, maybe you would have to pay taxes on that. I don't know.
exactly. That's the right way to think about it. What are the actual tax implications of having an auditor say, oh no, this 47,000 or this $47 thing doesn't count. So on those $47, you owe $9 in taxes and 78 cents in interest and penalties. Like, okay,
Yes.
there
And you have
is
the freedom of not keeping track of, you know, 50
right.
receipts. Okay.
Yeah, the
Okay,
receipt thing
so
is mysterious to me. It always has been.
and we always say, ask your tax professional and accountant what their view is. That's what your disclaimer is, right? Or my
Yeah, well,
disclaimer
but then
is.
my follow up to that disclaimer is again, having been a bookkeeper for 11 years who doesn't prepare taxes, when we say ask your tax professional, yes, that's appropriate because they're the one who signs your tax return. But if I told you to ask four tax professionals,
Mm,
I promise you, you'd get two or more answers from four professionals.
yes.
There is high variance in like there are no tablets of stone in which these things are written. Everybody's just kind of making it up.
Yeah.
And I know that's uncomfortable for people, but it's true.
Yes. That's why we need a simpler system.
I would agree.
Okay, so the person, starts with their spreadsheet, and we'll put a link to your spreadsheet. But your opinion, just in my opinion, just get started with Mark right away. You have everything there. And what I've loved is the 12-month rolling. So I can see my 12-month goal. I can
Oh,
see
good.
where I'm at in relation to that. I check that all the time. I think that's amazing. Like I knew how much money I needed to make this month to reach this goal based on that spreadsheet that is one click away on my bookmarks bar. It's literally
Hmm.
the best thing in the world.
I'm not sure I even knew that that was your favorite. I think that report's cool, but it's a little bit of a black box for me which parts of the reports my clients focus on, which ones they like most. And so I'm happy to hear that the 12-month rolling report is useful to you. And yeah, of course I do think people should sign up with me, but there must be some I completely understand there must be some psychology, some little block there for them where they're like, I don't know. I can tell you, I know of one that gets in people's way.
Mm.
They feel like they have to clean it up and organize
Oh,
it before
yes.
they get started with me.
Yes. And
And I,
believe me, I did not do that at all. I mean, we just give you the bank statements and whatever. I didn't do
yeah,
anything to clean anything up.
yeah. What do you think about that? What I mean, is it kind of like when you have a housekeeper, but you clean the house before they get there or something? I,
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I clean the house. I pick it up so that they can clean every square inch of the house. But that
Interesting.
would
Yeah, yeah.
that would be in your case, it would be get your account numbers, ready or get a list of questions ready and then have that. But you don't have to, I mean, what are you really going to clean up? I guess you would just, I don't know.
Well, I've noticed in people who are considering working with me or who finally do start working with me, I kind of have to beg them to let me run my process sometimes,
Hmm.
where they will tell me what they need to do. And I'll say, no, you don't know what you need to do. That's why we're here. I will tell you what to do. And if you'll just do it, it's my job to do the heavy lifting here. So if you think you have a mess, I am making myself responsible for cleaning it up. And I'm good at that.
Yes.
So I will,
To me, like, let it go and just do it. I love when someone tells me what to do and you say, just let me do it. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Another
yeah.
reason maybe someone would, it's the right time to hire is if you're procrastinating it. Like if you're not doing it and then you have no clue what your numbers are, and then you are beating yourself up because you're not consistent with the habit of sticking your numbers in the spreadsheet, For sure. That's worth 30 to $200 easily to have that
I
taken
think
care
so.
of. Like, you don't have to do all the work. You don't have to procrastinate. You don't have to beat yourself up. You just give it to Mark and he does it.
No, and in case it's not clear, let me try to make it clear. Um, I think sometimes people also feel nervous that they're going to get criticized or judged based on the state of either how they have everything set up or not set up or how they've spent their money. Or trust me, after, I mean, I'm easily 200,000 transactions into my bookkeeping career. I do not have an emotional response to anything. I'm just, I'm just,
That might be one of them. Is that someone spent money on the dry cleaners and getting their nails done or buying a jacket for a photo shoot. We talked about this on our last episode.
yes.
And they're going to be like, well, I could sneak that through and write it
Oh,
off. But Mark's going to see it and be like, no, or whatever. I don't know what
well,
your
actually,
answer
I'll
to
tell
that
you what I
is.
would say.
Okay.
What I would say is I'm all for the jacket purchase. And I don't even mind, some people might mind, but I don't mind that you paid for it with your business card. I'm just not going to call it a business expense because that wouldn't be appropriate. But if you want to pay for it and if you want to pay for it out of your business account, that's fine with me. We're just not going to pretend a thing is a qualified expense that isn't a qualified expense.
Right. But
Uh,
you're not going to like shame us for doing that.
no, heavens, I don't care. I I do it. I mean, there's nothing that other people do that I either have done or am. I mean, I might be doing it now. I have
Yeah.
a category in my own business bookkeeping called personal expenses. And if I swipe a business card for a personal thing, I don't fret. I just categorize it as personal and go on with my life.
Uh-huh. Well,
No, I
then
don't.
that's like an owner's draw. Does that just come out of, or can I
It
make a category? Can I have a category?
You can have a category. I Bookkeepers have differing opinions on this. Some people, every and any transaction that is personal, they'll call it an owner draw or an owner distribution.
Hmm.
Some will have separate categories called like personal expenses that they differentiate between a miscellaneous charge and an actual withdrawal that's intended to be sort of a payment to myself, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
I don't have a strong opinion. I've started to use both categories for clients like you, where I'll have an owner draw or owner distributions category and a personal expenses category for miscellaneous things like that. But
But the
it does,
personal expenses is not, you're not adding that as a category to be written off in your business. You're adding it as
no,
a category. Oh, dang. Okay. That's what I was
yeah,
hoping for.
you're you're adding it as a category so that we have a record of the transaction, but we don't include it in what goes onto your tax return.
Okay. So, a question just about your services, like the difference between you being a bookkeeper and you being a CFO for someone. What is the difference there? Is that two different services or is
Yeah,
that the
I
same?
have very few CFO clients at this point. The only difference, and see, I use the term CFO very loosely. In the quote real world, CFOs do a lot of things that I don't do. In my case, if I have a client who's working in that kind of service, I do their bookkeeping, and then we have a monthly call where we do some cash flow projections. That
Okay.
and that's it.
So it's the monthly call.
It's the monthly call.
Okay. When would someone need to do that or add that?
I don't know that I would ever say they need to.
Okay.
Some people want to.
Is it like having a money coach? You're coaching them on their mindset, or is it
Yes,
basically you're coaching them on their numbers and what they should spend or not spend, or projecting or planning?
I would say it's kind of maybe two or three things. I interpret their numbers to them. I often make numbers mean something different than my clients make them mean. So there's that element to it where we on that call I'll give my opinions on what the numbers mean. There's some, I hesitate to use the word, but it's kind of like some business coaching where based on what we see in the numbers, we'll talk about what they're planning to do and to try in their business.
Hmm.
And I've been in so many coaching businesses and so many different business models that I do probably have insight on their business model that they may not have yet. They will have
Hmm.
it, but they don't have it yet.
Hmm.
Um, And then sometimes it's life coaching. It's it's talking about their emotions, and it's talking about their feelings and
Yeah.
calming down or whatever. So it kind of ends up being all of those things.
If someone wants to hire you and use your bookkeeping service, how do they do that?
They just go to letsdothebooks.com, and they can either go to the services page, which is linked from the homepage, letsdothebooks.com/services. That'll give an overview of the service. And if they want to just get started, they can go to letsdothebooks.com/sign up with a hyphen between sign and up.
Okay.
Also linked from the website, of course.
Okay.
And they'll just fill out a form. They'll pay $1 to get themselves into my billing system. That'll kick off the onboarding process. They'll hear from me. We'll get them going. We'll get started.
And there's a place on that form they can say, "Oh, how did you hear about my services?" And they can write someone's name, like
And they should
Tracy
say
Hoth.
Tracy. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they should.
Okay. What else? Anything else you want to say?
I think I just want to say that bookkeeping is not, it's not worth a lot of worry. People worry about it way more than they should.
Mm-hmm.
But the way to not have to worry about it is to just have a system and get it taken care of. So you can either develop your own system using a sheet like the one I've described, or you can purchase my system in the form of an actual done for you service. But in either case, you get to stop thinking about it. And I think that's the greatest benefit.
Yeah. And
So-
notice what your thoughts and story is about your own money in general, but then about your own business and numbers and all of that.
Yeah.
So good. Thanks, Mark, for being here. I feel like it's really clear in a fun way how coaches and small business owners are managing their money and what they need to do and can do, what the options are out there. So I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Wait, if you're finding this podcast useful, you must check out the Organized Coach Academy. It's my course where I walk you through every step to get your business organized, to get yourself organized, to save money and time, to prepare to hire someone, to do all the things that you want to do in your business with ease. Check that out at simplysquaredaway.com/OCA. Also, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but I would love it. It's my way of knowing that you're enjoying the podcast if you leave a written review. I have lots of freebies for you. They're linked in the show notes. You can find them in my bio on Instagram at Tracy Hoth. And until next week, have a beautiful day.